Hey, boys and girls. I hope y'all are doing well. We are going to continue working on narrative writing for the next several weeks. I don't want anybody to get stressed out. We're going to take it day by day, step by step. I'm going to be with you the whole time, whether we're back in school or whether we're doing this online. And so I will be editing with you. Make sure as you work through this that you go back and look at comments. Any assignment you're doing for me, whether it's with our novel or this, any assignment you're doing with me, that's a Google assignment. I'm going to be making comments. And so go back and look at my comments. A lot of times it's just telling you what an amazing job you're doing. Sometimes it has some hints on things that you can work on. So always go back and look at those. And I'm going to do the same through this whole process too. So on this video, I am going to show you what my Google Slides look like for narrative writing, and then you'll have the opportunity to go into your Google Slides and do some of the work that I've done. I'm going to model the work for you here. You'll watch the video. You can watch it more than once if you need to, and then you can go back into your Google Slides and apply what we've talked about today. Okay, and we're going to hopefully do this if this works every day. Okay, all right. So, hopefully you are on, sorry, mine jumped around here. Yep. Okay. So hopefully your slide, we are on slide 18 and it reminds us of our prompt, which is write about a time when you learned a lesson. We've been talking about this for a couple weeks. Last week, I read just some mentor text where you had the opportunity to see characters that learned lessons. I know some of you, listen to all those books, and those are just to kind of get your thoughts kicking around. It doesn't have to be some kind of profound life-changing lesson. It can be something small as long as it's enough to write a story about, or it can be something bigger. Okay, it can be about the time you got chewing gum stuck in your hair on a trampoline and you learned not to do that because that was a hot mess trying to get it out, right? Or it can be something really big, that had more of an emotional impact. You decide. Okay. And as we talk through this the next couple days, you'll start thinking about topics that are going to be, some topics are better than others. It might be a great story, but it's not the story to tell here. Okay. Because I know you all have lots of stories to tell. Right, so if we move on to slide 19 and we start thinking about our planning, when you're writing your story, you need to know who was there, who was in your story, when did it happen? Was it last week or was it when you were 4 years old? When was it? Do not write a story about when you were two or 3 years old. You're not going to remember enough of the story to write about it with sufficient detail. Okay. Where were you? Right? Were you at Disney World? Were you in your backyard? Were you at your grandma's house? Were you at school? Where were you? How did it happen? What happened? Okay. You really need to have a good bit of information there. And then why did it happen? What transpired that made this story that's interesting enough to write about happen? Okay. Who was there? When it was? Where were you? What happened? How did it happen? And why? Okay. Just make sure you can think of answers to those questions before you start writing. Okay. All right, if we look on to slide 20, this is the slide at the top that is entitled Planning. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about the answers that I am giving for these questions. And then you're going to go back in your own slide after this video, and you're going to answer these questions for yourself, for the story that you've chosen to write. Okay, so in planning, the first thing I want you to think about is I'm going to write my narrative about. You've got to pick one seed. Remember we talked about watermelons and seeds. You've got to pick one seed event, okay? I'm going to write my narrative about when my friend Elizabeth was stung by yellow jackets. And I told y'all about that story a little bit in class a week or two ago now. And so I'm going to tell you that whole story and how that came to happen, right? I think this is going to be a good topic because you got to finish this sentence. I finished it with saying I could describe it with great imagery, and I definitely learned a lesson. Okay. Remember, boys and girls, imagery are your five senses, right? Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touch. I can use four of my senses in my story. I saw things, I heard things, I felt things, and um, I did smell. I have a little bit for smell. Okay. Hopefully you can, for a good story, for good imagery, I would like for you to have at least three imagery senses. Okay. Um, at the bare minimum two, but 3 or 4 or better. Okay. I understand you may not have them all. I don't have them all in my story. I didn't taste anything. Okay. But if you have good imagery, it's going to make for a more engaging story that makes your reader feel like they were part of it as well. And then again, you got to go back to that topic, making sure that I learned a lesson. In the years past, I've had some kids that write and write and write and write, and then they come to me and I'm like, what lesson did you learn? And they're like, I don't know. Right? That's the whole topic. Make sure you've learned a lesson. Right? So the third one is making sure that you're answering the question. The lesson I learned from this event was, what was your lesson you learned, right? I learned to be careful in nature and never, ever stick your foot or body parts into a hole in the ground. That's what my friend Elizabeth did. She jammed her foot into the hole in the ground, and then all these yellow jackets swarmed up. It was terrible. So that's the lesson I learned for my story. Okay, so in a few minutes, I'm going to go over one more slide for you. But in a few minutes, you're going to go back into your Google Slides. You're going to look back over slide 18 and 19, make sure you can address those things. Then you're going to go to slide 20, which is entitled Planning, and you're going to answer these questions. Okay. All right, slide 21. Here's where you're going to want to grab a pencil and a sheet of paper or something where you can take some notes because you're going to write down these exact words on your slide 21. Okay. This, you're not having to think for yourself. You're just writing down what I'm telling you here. Okay. So we're starting to think about good ways to start a personal narrative. We talked about in persuasive writing that it's really great sometimes to start with a question, ask people a question, kind of get them a hook and get them thinking about whatever topic it is that you were writing about, right? And you wrote about what bill you thought should become a law in North Carolina. And so sometimes you asked a question about the problem that you saw. We're going to do this a little bit differently with narrative writing. We have 3 tools we're going to add to our toolbox for good ways to start narrative writing. These aren't the only 3. These are just 3 good ones to start with. One of those is sound effects, right? Some kind of sound effect. What did you hear when it happened, right? So there were 2 big things I remember hearing when during my story. What do you think those were? Any thoughts, brilliant children? One was my friend Elizabeth screaming because she got stung over 50 times by yellow jackets. 2 was all the buzzing because we had an entire nest of yellow jackets that were swarming us, right? So those were the 2 sounds I heard. So I can start my story with the sound effect, or I can start with one of those sound effects. Those of you that love reading graphic novels, think about how it has all those onomatopoeias in there. Those are there because it captures your attention. It makes you feel like you're part of the story, right? Okay. Another way you can start your story is by starting with the climax and then going back. Okay. So if we think about our story we read 2 weeks ago, The Bite by Gary Soto, right? So it's possible, he could have started the story with when the boy got bitten by the dog, right? The climax of the story, the craziest part that we were all hanging on for, the best part of the story. And then he could have flashed back to the beginning and then told you everything, all that rising action that happened up to the climax, right? He could have done that. He could have started with the climax and then worked backwards and then told the story and then the resolution and how it ended, right? You might want to do that. You might want to start your story with your climax, with that crazy part of your story where you learned a lesson, and then go back and tell us how you got there, okay? That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to give really detailed descriptors of what you saw. It can be what you saw when your story started back here before your rising action came up, or it can be really specific descriptors at the climax, okay? You're going to decide that, right? So you're going to think about, so those are 3 good ways you can start a story. 1 is with sound effects. 2 is by describing the climax and then going back in chronological order and telling your story from there. And 3 are by giving specific descriptors of what you saw. Okay, what did you see happening at your story? What did you see as you were learning your lesson? Okay, so boys and girls, we're going to stop there. So what I want you to do now is to open up your narrative Google slide, go to slide 18, look over that, 19, look over that, 20, you're going to fill in with your own personal thoughts, your own experience. What are you going to be writing about? Tell me about it. And then slide 21, you're going to add these notes that I have right here to your slide 21. And then you're going to stop for today. Do not work ahead because each day I'm going to give you some helpful hints that will hopefully make the writing process go more smoothly for you. And each day I'm going to give you feedback. Okay. Guys, y'all are brilliant writers, and I can't wait to read these stories if for no other reason that it'll make me feel like I'm with you a little bit more. Anyway, I hope y'all are having a great day. I'm really, really proud of y'all and all the work that you're doing. I know this is a huge change for all of us, and y'all are just rocking it. So keep it up. Email me, comment in Google if you have any questions, if there's something specific I can help you with. Okay, kiddos? Take care. Bye bye.